Salut, bonjour, etc. Il est 11 de septembre de, 2000. It's the 11th of September 2013, and welcome to the Day 9 Daily. It's number 629, where we're going to learn to be a better gamer via admiring our good friend Bomber with our monocle. And I even brought my monocle today. Inspecting him as best we can. Oh. You see it's a monocle because it's clear. A lot of technology here. There seems to be a hole in my face. As many of you know, the delightful and ever bombastic SKMC recently wrote an article where he said that Terran vs. Zerg, though the most entertaining matchup in the game, has achieved the status as the most stale. In particular, he said that Terrans have quite the advantage, and we're seeing that statistically. A lot of Zergs certainly feel that emotionally, but let's be honest, everyone feels emotionally like their race is the weakest. However, it's absolutely true that the matchup, and I will use this word, has degenerated into one style. Biomine. And not just one style in the mid-game, like almost one build constitutes the majority of the matchup. And that is what we did in yesterday's daily, and we'll even, oh, actually, dirt, flip, blur, blur, I realize I can just show you the game really fast. So here we go. Yeah, we're actually just going to take a look at the very standard looking Terran opening. Bomber optimizes this a little bit, but this is still the strategy du jour. And this is the game that we looked at in yesterday's daily, which is why it's sort of intrinsically tied. This is the one style that we've been seeing out of a lot of Terrans. And in today's daily, we're going to see Bomber utilize a whole slew of different build orders, different mid-game mixes, different early-game tactics that's really going to blow the shell off what is kind of the norm. Doesn't fix the fact that this Biomine style is still unbelievably strong, and you can just state outright at the start of the game, I'm going to do it! And the Zerg will still have a really tough time. That said, I know many Terran players have just said, well, gosh, I mean, I'm not that great with Biomine, but it seems like there's nothing else to even crib from. So that's what today's daily is. I'm getting into the topic at hand before saying what it is. We're going to look at Bomber's various TvZ builds, damn it. And tomorrow, no daily. Friday, no daily. Monday, no daily, because I'm going to be at DreamHack Bucharest, hosting the show, casting a couple games, but basically hanging out with Smix. And when you try to combine our names, you can have Smay9 or Dix9, whatever you think is best. It's kind of hard to merge those two. Alright, cool. Let's go ahead and check out the game. What we are going to see now is going to be the ultra-fast forward version of Biomine, where a Terran player does some technique to turn the sound on, after which he gets his expansion, a barracks, followed by relatively fast hellion play, which we see emerging up in here. A third command center, pretty swiftly, but hellion production starting things off as well with very early stim production. And then soon enough we're going to see double engineering bay production. Often around 7 minutens. Lot of gas geysers going down. It's almost as though I study this game for a living. Yeah, 7 minutes is when we see le double engineering bay go down. And what's going to be following this from Bomber is a mix of mines, basic bio, and fast medevacs. Now, I'm actually going to skirt past this moment in gameplay and not go into the specifics of what Bomber's doing, because there's a lot of little tweaks forward, little tweaks backward, where, you know, you might get an earlier combat shield, delay the mines, and get earlier mines, and delay the medevac, something like that. The important thing important look that we're going to go for is around 11 minutes. This is the norm, and we're just going to take a look at it as we get to 11 minutes. Bam! Oh shit, I hit the wrong button. There's the P button. That's fine. This is just as legit a time. 2 upgrades are en route. Bunch of barracks with just a single tech lab. A factory producing mines. A starport producing medevacs. Second factory getting ready to really seriously produce some damn mines. And the third command center down. Do we get it? We get it? Cool. This is the norm. This is what Terrans do. Expand. Get Hellions to defend. Get the double upgrades up. And then Biomine. Blah, falls back on out. But what are some different ways in which we can do this? In this daily, we're going to be looking at like 4 games of Bomber. To start things off, we're going to look at something that's really... What, did I say a medevac producing starports? Nice. A medevac producing starports. It's a very unique style that will be in Legacy of the Void. Yes, that was a strong misspeak. Let's go ahead and take a look at a simple opening from Bomber that we will see a different way to open and how it flows into Biomine. So maybe you're looking for some sort of variation on play. You don't want to do something wildly different. Let's take a look at that. Now, one of the big things to note that Zerg players are going to be doing is trying to get 3 bases up, as we saw in yesterday's daily. For the ultra specifics, just watch yesterday's daily. That would be daily 628. But here in 629, what we're going to be seeing is still that Zerg players will have a tendency to want to get 3 bases up real fast by around 6 minutes, get double evolution chambers, generally at the front at around 7, 7.5, and then have all the rest of their tech rounded out by 11. So, we see that Bomber does get spotted here because Scarlet has some very unusual but very specific scout placements for this Overlord. But right away we're seeing this barracks go down at the front. And we will see as well a 12 refinery at the back. Now there's a couple ways to look at this build, but the important way is how it relates to the mid-game. All the builds at the start of the game are making a statement about what you're going to be doing in the mid-game, because the mid-game is when everything converges. I'm going to do a hyper-fast exercise to denote this type of this type of mid-game convergence. You could do something like open up 1 base fast hellion and then go for the command center. You're being quite aggressive at the start, but eventually you start rounding everything out, you get a bunch more barracks, you get those SCVs, maybe a 3rd command center, and bing! When you hit the mid-game, you wind up with a bunch of barracks making marines, factory making mines, and a starport. We started out on the aggressive route, still wound up here. You could do the thing that we just saw last game, early expand first, and then get the hellions. Not too many, because we're going to go very, very rapidly, bing, into the Biomine mix. Or we could even do something kind of crazy. Like we could open up with a whole bunch of fancy attacks like this with this fast barracks, and we could get banshees and hellions and all this stuff to be able to wind us right back at this Biomine mid-game. So, in a sense, your opener sends you on some trajectory, and then how you bend back into the mid-game is a mix of how the hell do I stay alive, and what else do I need to be able to bing, arrive back at the center. And this is going to be a great example of that. So cool. We're just going to open up with barracks going for Reaper. I'm at 2 minutes into the game, and some key decisions are already being dictated for me. Note that in a lot of builds, I need a barracks with an add-on getting me stim very, very early. But this barracks is all the way cross-map. So I'm not actually going to have that wonderful tool. I'm not actually going to have that stim started early. My goodness. At the 2-minute mark, we're already seeing that if we try to just default go back into normal Biomine play, which would be getting an expansion, getting hellions, excuse me, we can't just get stim the way that we saw just 3 seconds ago, or I should say just 3 minutes ago in that previous game. Can't do it. So what are we to do? We're going to see a nice answer from Bomber. It's a very significant question. Do we get a second barracks up? Wow, that's kind of weird to rush for gas and then get a second barracks and lift a barracks. I mean, there are ways of pulling that off. Not only do we definitely want a barracks back home producing Marines for our bunker to withstand those mid-game attacks, but we also use it for stim. So now we're going to be a little bit low on mid-game defense. We're going to be a little bit low on some of our key mid-game tools, namely that stim. So this is great, everything that Bomber's doing. Doing a little bit of harassment. Scarlet is going to be more great with her ability to defend this. And we see Bomber has stockpiled a good chunk of gas and will still go for the early expand. It's a little bit late. It's a little later than usual because, you know, he's distracted by the micro, but look at how many Reapers are being made. Whoa, there's going to be 3 total, I think 4 total Reapers actually in this game. But Scarlet just, Bomber begins to turn his way back. I'm going to make the declaration now that Bomber will be going Biomine. We obviously see that there are going to be some issues because there's no barracks here. Hell, this barracks has been super proactive at the front, building all sorts of Reapers. So Bomber will, in fact, build a second barracks, but normally this is where we would see the add-on go down. This is when we'd normally see stim get started. So what's a Bomber to do? Well, let us look. Also, our hellions are quite a bit delayed. So we're starting to see some similar themes from Bomber done in a different way. We have to get a reactor for this factory to be able to go double hellion production. And indeed, Bomber... Come on, Bomber. Come on. Indeed, Bomber is going to be making the hellions. Just took him a brief period of time. But building a reactor there, we see, is kind of inconvenient. It's quite difficult, actually, to get this barracks back there, because it's on the other damn side of the map. So, if Bomber can't really afford to get the reactor on this factory, how is he to contain? So I'm going to come back to before the factory finished. This is one of the reasons why we see Bomber going for these 4 Reapers. So we think back to the usual theme of Terran vs. Zerg. The Terran is containing with hellions, preventing creep spread, preventing lings from popping out. Very loud sync noise coming through the ceiling. Normally we don't have syncs being turned on. I bet it turns off in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Didn't work. But let me tell you, sometimes when you count down to an event happening and it does happen, you look like a genius. Speaking of genius, let's talk back about Bomber's build. We see the usual theme of some hellion-ish contain to stop Zerglings, to stop creep spread and this sort of thing. But the hellions are going to not be in large numbers because we either have to wait for this reactor to pop out or we just start building hellions one at a time. So that's why there's actually 4 Reapers being produced with this kind of build. Very cool to see en action. And of course with 4 Reapers down, I think this is kind of cute, having the 1 Marine rallied all the way back home. Cool. Bomber then follows up with another little play that I find quite ingenious. The starport. This barracks is actually that barracks that has its little intention to land back home. Bomber goes straight away for a banshee. Now, why a banshee? Why would Bomber be going for a banshee at this early phase? Because he doesn't have barracks units to help defend at his front. How does he expect to hold off huge Ling, Baneling, Roach aggression? He's building Hellions one at a time, which means he could only build mines one at a time. He has no bunker with Marines. He's not going to have any Marauders for the Roaches. So what's a bomber to do? These Reapers, more than ever, need to stay alive. The Hellions being produced one at a time, more than ever, need to stay alive. So Bomber, still opting to delay that tech lab. How can he get away with this seeming travesty? Because he's going for this Banshee. Still controlling like a boss, trying to let the Reapers take the damage since they heal. And what do you know? Hey, there's the third command center. Wait, we saw that in the other build. Oh, we're starting to see a little bit of convergence coming on here. Converging towards this mid-game. Cloak comes up. Banshee comes up. And of course, last but not least, Stim is going to be coming up. Come on, Bomber. Come on. Come on, Bomber. There we go. Stim. We're starting to see things slowly wiggle their way on backwards. Now, what is this second tech lab going to do? This first tech lab is very clear. We're going to be getting Stim, then Combat Shield, and then probably Marauders later on down the road. What does this thing go to? Seems like a very nice tech lab to throw down some upgrades for our mines. Maybe our second factory will be planted on here. Got to be very careful to make sure that we have some usage out of that. We see that in the meantime, where is the engineering bay? There it is. Our extra engineering bays are going down. This contain hasn't really been broken yet. And the Banshee Harass is going to arrive just in time to keep Scarlet well contained. So here we go. Yeah, this is where we start to see the good juice go down. Upgrades coming up. 2-2 upgrades. We're seeing the upgrades are one of the last little components to this entire mixture. We see that the barracks start to get produced. The factory is going to be nothing but a big dud building doing nothing but building add-ons. Mass Marines in production. Nothing has been done too steeply with this sort of stuff. But there we have Bomber starting to get the look of the usual Biomine player. And we can sort of see that the... I'll actually come back and take a look at what the harassment was specifically doing, and then this harassment not only shutting down these bases, it's great to shut down the bases, but we have to make sure that we, the Terran player, have our really cool workings back. So once the stem is started, then we go and get the engineering bays, just as in our old style. Once we get these Banshees out and our contain is feeling pretty good, 2 Banshees is the number, Bomber then pulls back and gets the classic sort of looking mix with this starport on the reactor and the mines being the last little bit that he adds on. And Bomber tries his best to contain. He gets picked off. The Banshees show up and are really damn annoying. The Bomber's threat is already like so superly well established. There's just a simple rally here and a simple wall off. So great! We see the same mix. Bunch of barracks, factories making these mines, starport churning out the medevacs. And hey, I'm gonna go ahead and just park my little camera right here because I bet you're wondering what that tech lab's gonna do. I bet you're wondering. This factory up here really should have been there. No, don't do it, Bomber. Don't do it. Don't do it, Bomber! Ah! Bomber, no! Don't lift. Land it there, Bomber. No! This is what the only thing that really hurt my soul. Everything else Bomber did was brilliant, but this, oh my god, what is that doing there? Oh no. Oh my god. This is exactly like when you go to the restaurant and they're like, how many soft tacos would you like? And you think, I mean, I normally get 5, but let's get 6 soft tacos. And then you're like 4 tacos in, and you see 2 more there, and you're just like, I'm so full. Like this is a leftover taco. But remember, every pizza is a personal pizza, with enough dedication and commitment. It's nothing to do with Terran versus Zerg, but it's true. In America, we pack our bodies to capacity at every meal. So here is our first little look at a useful illustration of an opening geared towards converging back to something familiar. We don't care so much about 15 minutes being the specific timing of all this stuff. What we want to note is that all the way back here, at the 1 minute and 56 second mark, which will likely take my little replay loader a hell of a lot longer to load than I would like, way back here we started to see decisions made for us. Just by virtue of this being here, we won't have a tech lab back here, we won't have a barracks back here to build reactors. How the hell do we cover all those deficits as we step forward into the game? We see the bomber does a number of very cute things. Building hellions one at a time, keeping the Reaper count at 4 to replace the hellions. Going for a banshee is another defensive tool, because we've sacrificed the other defensive tools. We don't have the barracks and the bunkers and all that stuff to be able to build defenses up at the front. But after bomber gets this set up, we do see everything converging back to normal with the double engineering bay, the third command center already down, and the remainder of the structures dumping into Biomine. Nifty! When we come back in part 2, we're going to be looking at a rather kick-ass build that we saw out of Bomber in... which game did he do that in? Well, I'll go find them. But basically, he goes for Marine Tank as a mid-game instead of Biomine. So now instead of thinking in terms of how do we get to Biomine, we're going to be thinking of how to get to Marine Tank. So stay tuned in part 2. And that's all she wrote for part 1. Yeah, we're on a break.